In my life, both professionally and personally, I've tended to follow the route of seeking out those at the top of their game and then try to learn from them. It could be meeting them to chat, watching interviews or content from them, or just reading up on who they are and their process. It's that method of learning that inspired this podcast series. I wanted to try pick the brains of globally recognized and talented people, so anyone listening who had a passion for esports or gaming might be able to expand their knowledge base. A little bit selfish too, because the truth is I wanted to expand my own personal knowledge base in the industries that I'm passionate about. When putting together this episode on landing esports sponsorships, my mind immediately jumped to ESL. The International Esports Tournament Organizer, production company, and event organizer has successfully introduced globally recognized brands to the esports ecosystem. They've also, and for me this is pretty important, kept said brands in the space. Their work through the years has ultimately made ESL one of the most globally recognized brands linked to esports. So it makes sense to think that they know what's up. This is a two-part episode, and you're listening to part two. In part one, I broke down esports sponsorships from a brand perspective, chatting to the global esports account manager for SteelSeries. Tim Ashton, the gent I spoke to, explained how, on the brand side, decisions are made with regards to sponsoring tournaments and teams in the space. You can listen to that episode on your usual podcast provider. It is live. For part two on the topic of esports sponsorships, I wanted to find out how a successful entity is able to welcome new brands to the esports space, ensure their needs are met, and again, most importantly, keep them coming back for more. I've already explained what ESL is, specifically if you're new to the esports space. So for part two of this Tech Girl Talks episode, Farrell Sweeney, Director of Partner Management at ESL, spent some time speaking to me and giving me a look behind the curtain, so to speak, at how a successful, and that's really the key word here, sponsorship or partnership in esports plays out. In season one of Tech Girl Talks, I did actually do an episode called Death of the Gaming Journalist. I think it was episode 6 of the season. And in it, I spent some time explaining marketing budgets, how they're sometimes split. I was able to break down the complexities of something like esports that lives in the digital world, reaches such a large audience, but also pulls on some broadcast elements. It isn't necessary that you listen to it to follow along with some of the insights in this episode, but it would possibly help broaden your knowledge base, give you a little bit of background if you're interested in the marketing mix. So I'd suggest giving it a listen anytime. And let's jump into part two of landing an esports sponsorship. I think we have a very simplistic view of what a business or team might look like in esports behind the scenes. And in the case of an esports event, it's easy to imagine that you have your production team, 2 or 3 admins running the tournament, and then a salesperson going around to sell. And it sounds almost dirty when I say it like that, and grossly simplistic. There's far more to putting together a successful esports event or bringing a new sponsor or partner into the ecosystem, as Farrell explains.
My job is a little complicated, but I think taking a step back, and many organizations are structured the same way. So they're the sellers who are kind of going into the market and explaining, obviously, the value proposition of ESL and DreamHack or whatever a person's company may be. And then I call them the hunters. And then our partner management team, we are the nurturers. So once a brand has decided they want to partner across ESL and DreamHack properties, we're the ones working with them every single day to help bring that partnership to life. And I think in addition to that, for people who are less familiar with ESL and DreamHack, we are most known for global events, that have anywhere from 15,000 to 175,000 people all across the world for esports events and then gaming and lifestyle festivals. And with the global nature of not only our company, but our events, we're working with our brand partners every day, but we're also working across sometimes 15 different teams to bring in a single event or online tournament to life for that brand. So it's definitely kind of working across many different people and many time zones to help make sure that the brand is showing up in the right way based on what that brand is looking for at our tournaments and events. And also, I think it's interesting, another part of our job is, a partnership. It's really important that the fans on site or the viewers on stream or even the players in many cases, we want to make sure we're bringing the brand to them in a way that they want to interface with that brand. So whether it's StarCraft 2 or CSGO or Dota 2, we need to make sure that we understand those communities and why they're there and what's going on in that community and that esport and that game. So we're bringing the brand to life in the right way for that environment. And so we're kind of master of none, but knowledgeable across all, if that makes sense.
In part one of the things Tim Ashton said has stuck with me. The idea that there needs to be some sort of attractive value proposition for a partner to get involved. The mainstream media has whipped the esports is blowing up line and all the other headlines to death. And while more brands are starting to look at dipping their toe into the esports space, we're seeing it even more so in developing regions, actually. There is a fallacy that they're simply throwing bucket loads of cash at tournament organizers for the privilege of having an advert run during a live event. And I think roles like the one Farrell occupies could arguably be seen as the unsung heroes of competitive gaming, because their job is to actively bring to life an attractive value proposition for the partner that can still resonate with the fans who are engaging with the content, and this is the big one and the kicker, the players themselves, because at the end of the day, without the players, there wouldn't be a show.
I really think that there is such an impression, and I understand it, that these brands are just throwing money at sponsorship just to show their logo and be there and whatever. And it's so different than that. Like, I thank you for the unsung hero comment, but I feel like what people don't see is us in a room with Intel and our production team and like testing the gaming PCs and like the tech for not only producing all of our events and content, but also for the players competing. And we're doing like all of these tests. We're trying to innovate the tech across the board. They're literally like powering our company. And then in a different room, we're sitting with Monster being like, what do the players need? Like, how do we fuel them in the best way with what we can offer? Like, we really partner with brands who actually are interested in that, because I think we've seen enough times companies just kind of come in and just be there to show their logo. And that's really not, I mean, that's not why I would get out of bed every day. And that's also not what ESL and DreamHack is about. Like, we want to work with people who want to be there for the right reason. And so it's actually exciting because we get to work with these brands to make things better, which I think is really cool.
I've regularly heard the question asked, why sponsor an esports event? And ironically, many tournament organizers I've dealt with can't actually answer that question, which is a bit odd, because at the end of the day, if you're trying to attract new partners, best you know what the thing you do is and something they'd work well with. So there are so many reasons actually for a brand to get behind esports, and so many opportunities for them to be able to actively partner in the industry and create value.
Brands are there for so many different reasons. So like, I think a really interesting one to look at is our Shopify partnership. They're there because they want StarCraft 2 to be a self-sustaining financial ecosystem. So they're literally doubling prize pools for our ESL Open Cups. They are infusing money in the community and like reviving things that, like the map contests that Blizzard had discontinued before. So there are brands like that who are literally like, let's use our power as a brand to up-level this community. There are other brands that, yes, care a lot about the digital integrations and the global reach of esports. There are other brands who want to be there and interact with the fans on site. Like, it's so different across all of our different brands. Like, I would be honest in saying that no two brands that we touch, at least, and we have, over 10 very large global partners, like none of them are there for the same reason. So I think that's it's been interesting.
I was always a bit dubious using a wireless keyboard and mouse for my gaming time. The folks at Logitech G convinced me to give some of their wireless peripherals a go, and now my keyboard and mouse, as well as my headsets, are all wireless. I couldn't feel any latency issues with the Logitech G Gear, and that's because of their innovative wireless technology solution known as Lightspeed. If you're a bit like me and feeling dubious, visit www.logitechg.com to find out a bit more. And then join us over here on the wireless side. We have no cables, but we still have epic plays. There is a worry I have around how we package and sell esports, for want of a better term. It's a worry I have with content creation in general. I think that based on some of the limited sales decks and pitches I've seen, we tend to attempt to replicate traditional media offerings. It's almost like we sometimes don't really understand or know what we're offering, so it's easier to take a stock standard rate card from a bygone print and broadcast era and customize it to esports. So you end up with tournament organizers offering up this menu that has 3 or 4 sponsorship options that a brand can pick and choose. So why does this worry me? Well, because I don't think it offers up long-term success value or has any actual staying power. It was something I raised with Farrell, wondering if the true success lies in unique offerings to suit the partner versus the cut and paste, everyone gets the same approach.
Well, I think it's so important. And I think it's also uniquely important to what we do, because we are not working in a low lift environment. So this isn't like submitting logos and commercials and bam, we did our job, because we have so many different events and most of our partnerships are brought to life, of course, during non-COVID times, online and on site. It is a huge undertaking for not only our company, but our partner, to make these partnerships come to life across all of those different things. And so I think what's really interesting is just that nobody would do the cut and paste approach here, because frankly, it would be too much work and it wouldn't be worth anybody's time. And whenever we talk to a brand, we don't want partners who are just here to throw their logo in. We want partners who are invested with us and care about growing esports and gaming, and taking everything to the next level. And we've found that. I mean, brands do come to us. We do want to understand their specific priorities, because if we don't understand their priorities, we can't work together to bring it to life in the best way possible.
Okay, so you have a great partnership, uniquely focusing on the goals of the partner and, most importantly, the experience of the players and fans engaging. You've laid it out and you're ready to activate. But what you ideally want is a partner that finds value and continues to support the space as well. So to do that, you need to ensure the idea is successfully rolled out and ultimately delivers a positive result. But is it even possible to guarantee a positive result?
Well, I think that there are some things that are, more numeric based, right? Like what was the viewership? And then there are other things like the intangibles, like how did the fans feel? Did they have a good time at my on-site experience? Those things are a little less we're a little less able to guarantee them. However, we actually have a large global partnership with Nielsen where we can provide media evaluations and we can provide actually a look at, fan reception of brands and their integrations over time with us. So I think a lot of times it's important to have, that third party come in and actually look at all of those different things and have a third party kind of verify. But I think at the end of the day, you work with a partner, you agree on what they're going to get and how things are going to come to life. And those things happen or they don't. And we have a great team, so they always happen for us. But I think that at a fundamental level, we know our audience is valuable. We know that the community cares to have these people come in and up-level their experience, whether it's a player or a viewer. So I think we're confident that we can deliver what we say we're going to deliver.
When listening to Farrell, I start thinking that there are some key takeaways when we're looking at sponsorships or partnerships for esports. There needs to be a confidence in what you do as the tournament organizer or content creator. Being confident in your offering is understanding your audience and being really clued in to their needs and requirements. But there does also have to be some involvement from the brand from the get-go. Building a partnership is sort of in the name, right? It's a partnership. Input and a hands-on approach from the partner is paramount. From the start, there needs to be a line of communication open in understanding how the partnership will be measured, what the brand's objectives is, and making sure that stays front of mind throughout said partnership.
part of the success too, right, is understanding, were you guys happy? Do you feel like you achieved what you set out to achieve? I know when we head into an event or an online competition, we know that we need to deliver, the scope of what their partnership entails, and we need to deliver it to the best that we are able to do with what we can offer. And I think when we head into it, we also look for last minute opportunities based on what the brand has said that they're looking to get out of that tournament or that event. But we also do need to lean on them to understand, like, was it a success? How are you feeling about everything? And that's all going to be within the lens of what they are looking to achieve.
Earlier on, Farrell mentioned some of the ways to report on partnerships. In part one with Tim Ashton, we spoke about some of the problematic issues with reporting. And I think that this is a really interesting space to look at in how we look at a successful partnership. What does it look like? How do we determine if something works? And what is the best way to report on that success?
I don't think that there's one measure of success, but I think a couple of things that could be looked at is, A, did the partnership come to life the right way or the way everybody anticipated it? B, did fans and viewers appreciate and remember interactions with that partner? And that's, again, where we have third-party research to back that up. And then C, was viewership and attendance in line with expectations? So I think there are some very tangible, like viewership, attendance, impressions, things like that can be measured. And I think there are also the intangibles, like we talked about.
Esports is such an exciting place to be right now, and we've watched organizers like ESL really just grow the industry into something none of us could ever imagine. But I do think if you've listened to both part one and part two of the sponsorship discussion, you'll notice that there is an underlying message that has creeped in from both Tim and Farrell. And yes, maybe I've fed this narrative a little bit too, but it is the idea of innovation. We don't need to try to turn esports into what we've seen broadcast media do in the past. We don't need to copy what we've seen broadcast media do in the past. Hell, we don't need to copy what we've seen other esports tournament organizers do in the past. Yes, it might be easier to understand for new players in the business space at least, but the true beauty in this industry is the ability to bring something completely new to the table and introduce experiences that not only keep brands coming back for more, but will also bring value and entertainment to the fans and players of esports.
People definitely don't realize everything that goes into it, but I think we're in a really interesting time and space for the esports and gaming industry. Like, for example, our US events, we take out NBA stadiums. And so when you're going to a brand and we're in the room with brands like Intel and these huge partners, Monster, we don't have the luxury of not bringing innovation and these like tier one ideas and understanding of their brand to the table, because the brands we work with now, they are sponsoring like the NFL, the Olympics, the NBA. And so we do not have the ability to show up and say, hi, yeah, we're going to have a 25,000 person event. You can put your logo here. Like, we would get laughed out of the room. So it was kind of a world in which, like, the esports industry, as it grows, we have to step up and be top tier with our approach, because we're kind of in the bigger leagues now that we're attracting, tens of thousands of people over the course of a single weekend.
You've been listening to Tech Girl Talks, a playlist original podcast series available anywhere you get your podcasts. If you found value in the episode, please be sure to give it a review or share it with your friends and colleagues. If you want to chat more, you can find me at TechGirlZA on Twitter and Instagram.